Now the latest ITV news in London.
Good evening, welcome to the ITV News in London. Tonight's main stories. Sick of delays, why a 2-minute late train will mean an automatic refund. £250,000 down the drain as the Home Office says police can't use Boris's water cannon on London streets.
One of the reasons why you hate politicians is because we lie.
What made this MP come clean to a room full of sixth form students? And the selfie stick backlash at London's famous galleries. Hello, I'm Lucrezia Millarini. Passengers who are delayed just 2 minutes on the train will get automatic compensation under a crackdown by the government. Commuters on C2C routes between Essex and London will receive refunds on their special travel smart cards for every minute they are delayed. And if the trial is successful, it will be introduced across the network. Luke Hanrahan reports.
20,000 people every weekday hoping their train will be on time. The figures here at Fenchurch Street say 19 times in 20 they are. For C2C commuters arriving from Essex, even more good news. From December, every time their train is more than 2 minutes late, they'll receive compensation.
I've got an exam today, so I would have appreciated it if they were a bit more prompt. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing.
People will be happy to know that at least the company will make efforts to meet their target.
The government says if this scheme is successful, it will be applied nationwide. At the moment, passengers who arrive on a train which is more than 30 minutes late have to fill out this compensation form. Under the new system, you would be automatically reimbursed using your travel card.
Passengers will just clock in and clock out like you do with an Oyster card at the moment, and we'll do the rest for them. We'll work out what train you were on, we'll work out if that train was late, and if it is late, we'll make sure that you get the money you're owed as a result.
Compared to C2C, other rail operators have a success rate which is nowhere near as high, potentially meaning a combined loss of hundreds of millions each year. 1 in 3 trains on some of London's busiest commuter lines ran late last year. South Eastern only managed 62% of trains running less than a minute late, and South West trains 66%.
Usually it's a battle to try and get money back.
We are chasing so much to get this money back, and sometimes we forget that whether we have to go for refund. So if it comes automatic, it will be very good for the customers and all the consumers.
Currently, only 1 passenger out of 10 on a train more than 30 minutes late applies for compensation. If the C2C trial is a success, refunds will be automatic for everyone. Luke Hanrahan, ITV News.
Boris Johnson spent £250,000 on water cannon that may never get used after the Home Office refused to allow them on London streets. The Mayor brought the machines for the Met last summer despite them not being approved for use in the UK, and today the Home Secretary, Theresa May, delayed any decision on that until after the election. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has a story.
What if she says no?
Well, as I say, I think that is most unlikely, and I think...
June 2014, and Boris Johnson is trying to reassure the London Assembly he hasn't just wasted the best part of £250,000. That was the cost of buying 3 second-hand water cannon for the Met. Rather awkwardly for the Mayor, he didn't have permission to use them. The final decision on whether the police can use water cannon must come from the Home Secretary. For almost a year, Theresa May has kept Boris Johnson waiting for an answer. Today, the Home Office confirmed there would be no decision this side of the election. Which almost certainly means Boris Johnson's water cannon ambitions are all washed up. At the London Assembly, they could barely contain their delight.
I've just had some very good news that Theresa May has refused water cannon.
Yes, we've all seen it.
I would just like to say that the majority of the Assembly is fully behind the Home Secretary on this. Well done, Theresa.
In a statement, City Hall said independent polling shows that the majority of Londoners support the police having water cannon at their disposal for use in exceptional circumstances. The Mayor has made his position clear and awaits the Home Secretary's licensing decision. So what difference would water cannon have made in the riots of 2011? The MP for Tottenham thinks he knows the answer.
Walking down Tottenham High Road on that Sunday morning, there is no way in hell it would have been appropriate to take water cannon down that road. They wouldn't have been able to get down Tottenham High Road. They would have caused huge destruction to ordinary civilians on Tottenham High Road. It's not appropriate on the streets of London, and Boris should know better.
Last year, radio presenter Nick Ferrari challenged the Mayor to be blasted by water cannon to prove they're safe. He said yes, but that won't now happen.
Theresa May never saw the need for these. I understand that she's gone to considerable lengths to ensure that every possible dot was in place and every possible T had been crossed, and she's obviously found a wrinkle. Boris has been left rather red-faced by this, and there's no splashdown for us.
The Mayor, or possibly his successor, will now have to decide what to do with 3 unwanted second-hand water cannon which can't be used. Simon Harris, ITV News.
3 people have been convicted of helping the men who murdered nursery teacher Sabrina Moss. She was shot while out celebrating her 24th birthday with a friend in Kilburn. 3 gang members were jailed for her murder after they were caught up in the middle of a turf war. Today, Fiona Callum, Daniel Reid and Matthew Brizimada were found guilty of helping them hide and destroy evidence in the aftermath of the shooting. And of course has heard how a handwriting expert found similar markings on some of the ballot papers used in last year's Tower Hamlets mayoral election. Lufter Rahman is accused of fraud in the run-up to the vote in which he was elected mayor for a second term. Mr Rahman denies any wrongdoing. Now, like all great politicians, when UKIP's Winston McKenzie speaks, people listen. But unlike most great politicians, the reason for listening to Mr McKenzie is often to hear what he says wrong rather than what he says right. After a series of gaffes, he's been sacked as UKIP's Commonwealth spokesman. He described Croydon as a dump during last year's local election campaign and said he was dismayed by the former boxing promoter Kelly Maloney's transition to a woman. Well, Mr McKenzie joins me now. Winston McKenzie, thank you for joining me. Do you think you were dumped because of your comments about Croydon being a dump, or because of your comments about Kelly Maloney?
No, let's put the situation with regards to the Kelly Maloney issue to one side. The former man, Frank Maloney, I knew him, great guy, great boxing promoter, you know, and it was a shock to everyone what actually happened there.
Why,
you know?
why was it a shock?
It was just a shock. It was a great guy. It was just a shock, absolute shock.
Why were you dismayed and disillusioned?
I don't know. You have to ask God that, you know. It was just dismaying. You know,
okay.
I felt, look, you know, as a boxer, ex-boxer, you feel as though, you know, we're all one big family as boxers, and I felt I'd lost a mate.
Okay, well, let's talk about Croydon then, shall we? So you describe Croydon as a dump. Do you still think that?
Absolutely a dump. I want to know what they've done with our money. It's a complete dump. These guys, the money that comes down from central government and then goes down into local government, these guys are crazy.
Mr McKenzie, you say this, you say Croydon's still a dump, but you're still planning to stand for election in Croydon in May.
We've got to make a change.
But you're insulting the very people that you're hoping will vote for you.
Right, we've got to make a change. We've got to make a change.
You're insulting the people you want to vote for you.
In my area, you've got murders, you've got muggings, you've got young children being displaced, you've got unemployment at its highest rate. We've got to change the whole system. And now,
all right,
UKIP are coming with the proper policies. Me, as a politician, Mr McKenzie in the local area, 50 years I've been in that area.
Let's talk about UKIP and your role within UKIP, of course. Now, you've described UKIP leader Nigel Farage as Jesus. Have you heard from the Messiah about your recent sacking, if you like? Have you spoken to him about
you're
this?
A beautiful girl. Let's not go down the wrong route.
It doesn't matter what I look like, Mr McKenzie.
My governor, Nigel Farage.
The governor, what's he said about all this?
The governor is what I call him. He's an upright, strong politician.
But what's he said to you about this, the fact that you're no longer in this role, that you've been removed from the Commonwealth spokesman role? What's he said to you about this?
Well, it's disappointing. I spoke to Nigel yesterday.
Okay.
And he said to me, listen, we've got this guy in Europe and he's actually dynamite. Now, Winston, we're a professional outfit. And moving you on. And when he said that, moving you on, I felt a cold sweat run down my back. I said, Nigel, get to the point. Well, then he said to me, well, Steve will speak to me later. So I spoke to Steve Crowder.
So you didn't really speak to Mr.
Well, we did. He rang again later on, and then it was like, do you remember the Godfather 2? Do you remember Godfather 2 when they put Credo in the boat?
I do, but I feel like we are veering off the point here. We are slightly
and they pushed
veering
him
off
out
the
to
point
sea.
here.
That's how it felt. I felt so upset. What
Okay.
can I say?
I have to get to the point now, unfortunately. I have to say, Mr. McKenzie, thank you very much for joining me this evening, but we have to leave it there.
The UK Fox has been
Thank
unleashed.
you very much. I have to leave it there. We are watching the ITV News in London. Still to come. The prospect invasion of the Spanish slugs, how you can keep your garden safe this spring, and why selfie sticks are being banned at London's top galleries. 8 weeks tomorrow, millions of us will be going to the polls to choose our next government. But if last time's turnout is repeated, less than half of 18 to 24-year-olds won't have their say. So how do we get young people engaged in politics? What issues matter most to them? And can politicians answer the burning questions that sixth form students have? Well, we held our first ever ITV News school debate to try to find out. Here's Nina Hossain.
Welcome to Southfields Academy in southwest London. If the capital was a school, then this just might be it. 70 languages are spoken here, more than in any school in Europe. Almost 60% of pupils don't have English as their first language. This is Wandsworth, one of the most affluent boroughs in London, and yet more than a third of pupils receive free school meals. So where better to host our first ever ITV News school debate? If you are voting in May, or if you would like to vote but can't because you're too young, if you hold up the card of the party you would be supporting on May the 7th. Much like all the predictions for the actual election, it's a very mixed picture and a lot of undecideds there, so we'll see if that changes as the debate goes on. Our first question this morning is from Osman, who is 17 and is in year 13. Can you put your question to the panel, please?
What strategies does your party hope to adopt in order to tackle the sort of disillusionment that teenagers have towards party politics?
Well, first of all, we've got to start making sure that our policies are relevant to young people. A lot of what this government's done has been around improving our education system, making sure people can get to university, making sure there are apprenticeships there for young people who don't want to go to university, want to get into the workplace but want to get skilled. So I think there's a relevant agenda that really matters to you. I think secondly, it starts before that, and it's more about how MPs are, you know, making sure that we're getting into schools and actually being around and about.
Sadiq, you've got a group of engaged teenagers here. What about those who aren't? How are you going to persuade them that you are the party with the right strategy to get their vote?
Well, look, there's a saying which goes, decisions are taken by those who turn up. And the problem is, only half of young people are registered to vote. Only 1 out of 3 vote. So people in my profession ignore and neglect you. And that's a crying shame, because you matter.
Peter Whittle.
I'd say that for my party, I noticed none of you put my party up at the beginning. I hope to be able to convince you, but what I would say is that we're full of people who are standing for Parliament for the very, very first time. That's young people, nothing to do with politics before, nothing to do with the usual kind of routes that people go into politics, and that's terribly encouraging. I think that really is proof of where we're coming from, which is the grassroots.
And last but not least, Ibrahim.
You know, I think we're kind of missing a trick here by not reducing votes to the age of 16 and enabling you all to vote, because you've got energy, you've got excitement, you've got thoughts, and look, I don't see the world through the prism of party politics. There are other issues that formulate how our values and our views of the world are constructed. So I got into politics because I campaigned to stop the Iraq war. So I think if you're disillusioned with politics, then you can still be political. You can still campaign on issues that you care about, and you can still get that change, and you can influence, and you can make a difference.
Let's move on to tuition fees. We've got a question from Rakaya, who is 16 and in year 12.
Why do we have to pay £9,000 for the same education as you when you didn't have to? Do you think it's fair?
Okay, Ibrahim, if I can start with you.
So, yeah, tuition fees, it's a big issue for the Lib Dems, and I think at the heart of that is a question of trust. I think the party has learnt a really valuable lesson about making promises that in the electoral landscape could only be fulfilled by a majority Lib Dem government. And if we had been a majority, that's what we would have done, but we weren't. So the party, for us, had to take a very painful decision and go with the next best option.
One of the reasons why you hate politicians is because we lie. One of the reasons why young people are put off voting is because we make promises and then we break them. And before the last general election, young people were made a promise that if you vote, for example, Lib Dems, they would scrap tuition fees. What happened after the general election? They didn't scrap them, they trebled tuition fees. So we're going to reduce tuition fees from £9,000 a year to £6,000 a year. And we're going to also increase maintenance grant, which half of students receive, by £400.
Do you think that we feel as if we're having to pay more because you haven't explained the policy on tuition fees enough to us?
Maybe the general election is a good chance for us to explain better how we've designed the tuition fees policy. I mean, the proof of the pudding is so what's happened to the numbers of disadvantaged students going to university? And the answer is that it's at all-time high.
Let's move on to immigration and get a question from David, who is 19, so we'll have the opportunity to vote. David.
It is quite common for media to portray immigration as the main cause for a number of problems in the UK. So what are your thoughts on this?
Peter Whittle.
I think what I would say is that immigration, which Britain's always had, has been a good thing. But what we've had over the past, say, 15, 20 years is not quite what we've had before. It's been of a completely different scale. And I think that what's happened is that now I think there's general agreement that this can't be sustained. Our policy, which is, I'll tell you straight, is simply that we want a level playing field for all immigration. Now, to do that, we have to leave the EU, because if we're in the EU, we can't control our borders.
Sadiq Khan.
When people start saying all problems are caused by foreigners, when people start saying all problems are caused by immigration, you should be worried. We should be really proud of the contribution economically, socially and culturally my father's generation, my mother's generation, some of your parents and grandparents' generation have made to this country. Marks and Spencer's, thanks to immigrants. Chicken tikka masala fish and chips, thanks to immigration. The most successful British Olympian ever. Asylum seeker, refugee, black Muslim, guy called Mo Farah. I'm really proud of a country that is welcoming to people from other parts of the world. Of course we want controlled migration. Of course we want to have borders that work.
But Labour can't
talk in language that encourages immigration. I've had constituents who have been in this country, Eastern Europeans, for 8 years. For 8 years, the first time they ever suffered racial abuse 6 months ago. You know, what this is a proxy for the concerns people have got. Address the issues people have rather than blaming foreigners.
Justin Greening, this is a real difficult issue for the main political parties.
Well, to go back to David's question about how the media portrays immigration, I think it's incumbent on all of us actually to have a measured debate about how we manage immigration in Britain, and to have something that's a bit more thoughtful, frankly, than perhaps what we've just heard. I represent a very mixed community. There's schools in my community, and I'm very proud to do that. And actually, I think London as a city, I mean, everyone lives here. And by and large, it's remarkable how people get on and actually are successful.
And the Lib Dems?
I'm really confused. I don't understand if immigrants are taking all our benefits or if they're taking all our jobs. I mean, there's a real dangerous rhetoric going on at the moment, and it's being led by UKIP. And unfortunately, the two major parties are falling into that slipstream.
Okay, thank you, one and all. So this is the you're fired, you're hired moment. Have a go. Let's see what colours you're going to hold up. still got quite a few undecideds. We've got a convert to UKIP, which I think is a big win in an audience of just 30. Quite a few red, not so many blue. I'd like to thank my panel, Peter Whittle, Sadiq Khan, Justine Greening and Ibrahim Takuri. And thank you all for your brilliant questions. I'm so sorry we could only get through a few of them, but thank you very much for participating in ITV News' school debate. Thank you, thank you.
The Met Police has served summonses of 5 men involved in an incident on the Paris Metro before Chelsea's game there last month. Another passenger filmed Chelsea supporters preventing a black man from boarding a train. The men have been told to appear at Waltham Forest Magistrates Court in 2 weeks' time for a hearing where they could receive football banning orders. On the pitch, Chelsea are hoping to book a place in the Champions League quarter-finals tonight when they play the second leg of their tie against Paris Saint-Germain. The tie is finely balanced. The two teams drew 1-1 in the away leg, though the Chelsea manager Jose Mourinho has criticised the French side, saying they fouled too much and were very aggressive in the first match.
I was surprised because a team with fantastic players was the team with the record of fouls, was the team that was making foul after foul, was the team that stopped Hazard with fouls all the time.
Main headlines in London this evening. The C2C rail operator will trial a new system where passengers get automatic compensation if their trains are delayed by more than 2 minutes. The government plans to extend the scheme to other rail networks. And the Home Secretary will not grant a licence to use water cannon on the streets of London before the election. The London Mayor, Boris Johnson, had spent £250,000 on 3 vehicles for the Met Police, but it now appears they may never be used. And now a warning to all gardeners out there. 2015 is predicted to be the worst year on record for slugs and snails. The experts say the pests who like to munch on plants are flourishing because of the mild winter we've just had. Parts of Essex and Surrey will be hit the hardest. We sent Martin Stew to investigate the slug threat and how best to deal with it.
We're creeping towards that time again when slugs and snails become the bane of gardeners' lives. And after a mild winter, not cold enough to kill their eggs, scientists predict this could be the worst year yet in London.
As soon as the spring starts, if it's nice and warm and wet and the young plants start to grow, the eggs will hatch. The young slugs will then start to feed on the nice, fresh, new plants, and the population will increase.
And it's predicted to be made worse by the growth of a foreign species.
These are the new invaders. These are the Spanish slugs.
And they're a problem which are growing fast. They reproduce twice as quickly as native British slugs, can grow to 15 centimetres, that's half a foot long, and can eat 40 times their own body weight in one day. They also have a thicker slime which protects them from many slug repellent products. So, with just a month until most of the eggs start to hatch, what should we do?
Okay, 3 top tips. Start now with barriers. You want to put copper tape around pots, and you can also protect your plants with this really popular wool-based pellet, which forms a barrier that slugs and snails don't like around your plants. Tip number 2 is to obviously get rid of them. You can use traditional slug pellets or use something like this, which is a trap, baited, they fall in, you dispose of them. Tip 3, if you've got a really difficult, shady, damp area, get advice on what to plant that they will like eating less.
Most importantly, act now, as baby slugs like these are far easier to fight than fully grown adults.
Martin, just looking at a picture of that slug there. Lots of tips there, but what else can gardeners do to make sure their plants don't get eaten by slugs and snails?
As I said, the key thing is really to act early, because when those slugs get really big, they can take up to 20 pellets to kill them, which aren't even the best way to kill slugs, not environmentally friendly. have a look on our website, itv.com/London. There's more tips on there.
I think I will. Big question is, though, is there more slug-friendly weather on the way?
Well, out there at the moment, it's pretty slug-friendly, it's mild, it's damp. This morning, though, was lovely. The RNLI were out and took some lovely pictures from the Tower boat station, the gorgeous sunrise we can see there. And our camera as well was taking some pictures from the Thames too, which we've sped up to see the sun rising. Looking rather nice, London there. Things got a bit cloudier throughout the day. Tomorrow is a mix, it's a reversal essentially, so it gets brighter later.
It's freezing. Are my cheeks red?
So what's left of any patchy rain around there at the moment will be clearing away shortly to leave a dry night. Pretty cloudy though and misty in a few places. Then quite a decent day tomorrow. Dry and fine, relatively breezy and cloudy though. Here we can see just that little bit of showery rain we've seen in the last few hours. Things clearing away, a fair bit of cloud, but then a decent day tomorrow before this next band of rain tries to fringe in towards London in the early hours of Friday morning before turning back and heading west again. Tonight for all of us then, once those showers are cleared, as I mentioned, it is going to be dry. Quite a lot of low cloud, and as a result, over higher ground, we could just see a little bit of mist. For all of us, it is quite a mild night. It then starts off in the early hours of the morning, pretty cloudy, but as the morning goes on, things brightening up nicely, particularly from the east, where we will get some nice sunny breaks. And into the afternoon, things brightening up very nicely indeed. So as a result, temperatures very nice for this time of year, up at 13, even 14 degrees. Slightly cooler out towards the east as you have that breeze coming in off the sea. Then it gets noticeably cooler on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Goodbye.
New Covent Garden Soup sponsors the ITV London weekday weather.
Now, depending on what side of the camera you stand on, selfie sticks are either the saviour or the scourge of modern society. The gadget, which helps make that all-important selfie easier, has become commonplace around the capital's tourist attractions. But the museums are fighting back. The National Gallery said today it's banning them, and others are expected to follow suit. Ria Chatterjee puts us in the picture.
It's essentially an extension of your body. Of course, your arm can't be banned from a public space. This stick, made of plastic and metal, however, isn't welcome inside the National Gallery.
I'm doing a video selfie right now just in front of a Rembrandt. The National Gallery argue that if I had a selfie stick, I could damage the painting.
With 6 million visitors plus a year, our rooms can get rather crowded, so we want to provide the best balance between people's enjoyment and protecting the paintings.
For some reason, this simple device has a complicated existence. It polarizes opinion.
Would you be worried about people taking a selfie here?
I don't think so. I think, you're fully in control of the selfie stick, and I think it gives you, a great shot of us at the museum, actually. So I think...
Across town at the Design Museum, there isn't a priceless painting in sight. That could be why selfie sticks are less of a worry here. But they say it's all about adding to the exhibition experience.
And a selfie stick allows you to get a really good perspective on you without having your arm in there or a funny facial expression, which we've all done holding a camera aloft. So we think it's a design development that's really arisen out of a need.
Ma Dixon created a museum selfie day. People are encouraged to take pictures inside museums with the aim of celebrating art. But she thinks the sticks are a step too far.
I don't like them at all. I think they're obnoxious, and I don't really see the need for them in a museum. When you extend the stick out, you're now into other people's spaces. You also have artwork and other people around you that you got to, have a little respect for.
To most people, the pros and cons of this debate probably don't matter. They're too busy making their own art. Ria Chatterjee, ITV News.
Well, just before we go, the organisers of London's famous pop-up cinema are back with another ambitious project. Secret Cinema brought Back to the Future to the capital last year. It didn't go too well, though, with technical problems delaying the launch. Undeterred, the team is set to do it again. Which film this time? And when does it start? Well, you can find out by going to our website at itv.com/London. And that is all from the London team. We're back with the latest after ITV News at 10. Stay with us for the national and international news with Alistair Stewart and Charlene White.